BBC News with Sue Montgomery. A growing number of countries have evacuated diplomats from the Sudanese capital Khartoum, with both France and Germany saying they've successfully extracted more than 100 of their nationals. Karkadan Yibaltal has the latest from neighbouring Ethiopia.
So far, we've seen evacuation operations mostly focusing on diplomats and embassy personnel. Quite a number of countries, including the US, the UK, and Saudi Arabia, have already evacuated foreign nationals, focusing on diplomats, and others are expected to follow suit as well. But quite a number of people are left behind, and they are uncertain as to what's going to happen in the coming days, because if Khartoum, particularly areas around the airport, are going to become battlegrounds, that's going to make it very difficult for them to leave.
For the first time in decades, Berlin will be governed by a Conservative-led coalition. Members of the centre-left SPD have narrowly voted in favour of going into power with the centre-right Christian Democrats. Damien McGuinness reports from the German capital.
A left-wing Green Party coalition was pushed out in an election rerun in February. The state election of 2021 had been declared invalid by judges because of irregularities, and the vote had to be held again. A housing shortage in Berlin, stretched public services, as well as the botched election, have left voters disenchanted. And even though the centre-left SPD party will stay in government as a junior partner, left-wing party members are outraged, accusing their leaders of selling out.
An international conflict research institute in Sweden says global military expenditure reached a record high last year, driven by Russia's invasion of Ukraine and tensions in East Asia. The Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, or SIPRI, said it reached $2.24 trillion last year, a rise of 3.7%. Here's Danny Eberhard.
The statistics, SIPRI says, point to an increasingly insecure world. It's an acceleration of a trend that's seen rises in military expenditure for the 8th consecutive year. Unsurprisingly, the war in Ukraine is behind steep jumps across Europe and beyond. Elsewhere, SIPRI has highlighted several notable rises in Asia. China's military spending is estimated to have gone up more than 4%, having risen in real terms every year for nearly 3 decades. The report does not specify the reasons for this, but Taiwan would be one factor, with tensions over the island running high.
A Ukrainian army spokeswoman says the southern districts of Kherson and Beryslav have come under heavy fire from Russian forces. Natalia Gumenyuk said about 30 buildings were destroyed in the attack on the western bank of the Dnieper River. BBC News. Thousands of migrants have embarked on a march through southern Mexico to demand that their requests for asylum in the United States be speeded up. The so-called caravan set off on Sunday from the city of Tapachula, near the border with Guatemala, with the aim of reaching Mexico City in the next 10 days. Police in Kenya say they've now exhumed 47 bodies, thought to be from a cult, whose members believe they would go to heaven if they starved themselves to death. The corpses were found in shallow graves in a forest near the coastal town of Malindi. The BBC's Dorcas Wangira reports from Nairobi.
Kenya's security minister has declared the deaths linked to a controversial cult a massacre. One of the graves is believed to have contained the bodies of 5 family members, 3 children and their parents. Former members of the Good News International Church were found alive but severely emaciated. Police fear that the number of shallow graves and bodies will rise as the exhumation continues. The leader of the cult, Pastor Mackenzie Ntenge, remains in police custody.
Jordan says a member of the country's parliament has been detained by Israel. In a statement, the Jordanian Foreign Ministry said it was working to secure the release of Imad al-Adwan. It said he was being held on suspicion of smuggling arms and gold into the occupied West Bank. There's been no comment from the Israeli authorities. Environmental activists in Portugal have created a mound made up of hundreds of thousands of cigarette butts in the capital, Lisbon, to raise awareness of the pollution they cause. The stunt was the brainchild of a German climate campaigner, Andreas Noe. The activists say cigarette butts form an overlooked form of pollution, and they want to encourage people to dispose of them in a bin or ashtray. BBC News.